Hello everyone, and welcome to number 2 in the series of the buttonhole class. What we're going to be doing in this video is making a buttonhole to go along with our button that we made in the last video. So here I just kind of, please don't mind my mess. This is the button that we made in the last video. And what we're gonna do is make a buttonhole for it in another piece of scrap linen that I have laying around. Now the buttonhole is going to look like this. Hopefully better. I haven't done this as my first go at buttonholes. And like I said in my previous video, kind of finding online tutorials and videos for it up close and personal was a difficult find for me. So that's why I'm doing these videos, even though I am absolutely petrified of being in front of people. But I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyways. So the buttonhole is gonna secure our button into our garb and then be able to close it without having too much of a gap. You do want these to be even, and then on Code Hardy's and Curdles, I do use a silk taping. I actually cut a piece of silk and sew it in with the seam allowance while I am making it for an extra reinforcement. I'll do that for both buttonholes and for eyelets. Anything that adds a stress point, I will add that extra silk taping too. I will get into that hopefully on a video in the future, but here we're just going to go ahead and start with the buttonhole. So I'm just going to take a marker just so that you can see. We talked about visibility in the last video. I would normally go in with a heat erasable pen and make a mark, but just so that you guys can see it a lot better, I'm going to go ahead and just use a permanent marker to mark a line slightly bigger than our button, if you can see that. And then put that to the side. I'm gonna come in with a pair of scissors, very sharp scissors, and make a small cut. I mean, just like barely a little cut. And then come in and make like this. Now I'm doing an eyelet video later on, and in the eyelet video, I will show you how to use an awl to part the fibers in the fabric, because parting is much better than cutting. Cutting, you're gonna fray. Parting, no fraying. So prior, in the eyelet video, I'll show you how to use the awl to do that. But with this one, we are going to be cutting. So we want to make sure that we lock in these threads, that these threads don't fray, and this buttonhole doesn't become a button gash, pretty much. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our needle and thread, and I'm using silk thread in this, and I'm using red so that you can see it against the pale green of this midweight linen. And we're gonna come in from the underside, which will be the wrong side of the fabric, about 1/4 inch diagonal of where that buttonhole stitch starts. We'll then go in underneath and just sliding it in the hole and come up about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch on the other side. And we're just gonna pull that like that. We're not gonna pull it tight because we don't want it gathering, but we're not gonna leave it super loose either. We want it just a nice little tension on it. And we're gonna do a continuing stitch right next to it. So as we do that, that's the start of our buttonhole stitch. So we have the fabric, or I'm sorry, the thread coming out the right side of the fabric, which is the outside. And we're gonna go ahead and make a swirl like this. So kind of almost like a hurricane. If you've ever seen the hurricane maps here in Florida, it's kind of like what the eye looks like. And that's gonna start our buttonhole stitch. It's very close to a blanket stitch, but a blanket stitch actually goes in the opposite direction. So sorry. In the opposite direction and links, but this one we're going in this direction because this is going to give us our buttonhole stitch. It's going to lock our thread and our stitch in. So if one stitch were to come out, it doesn't come out of the whole thing like a running stitch would. It keeps that next stitch locked in. So just like this, going under the hole where we cut and around, and we're gonna slide that needle in and out, and then pull it in the opposite direction. So we're gonna go nice and slow, and that gives us our first stitch. We're gonna do it again. Underneath, right next to it, up, and pull it through. One more time. Through. And pull it through. Now, you don't want to do this with too much thread. It'll get knotted up a lot easier if you have longer thread. So a shorter amount of thread is always going to be the best, and in my opinion, easiest way to do this. And you're just going to keep going. That goes around, this goes in close to it. You want to try and keep those stitches as even as possible. Don't expect perfection the first time. The more you do it, the easier it will get, the prettier your stitches will get. So don't lose hope. There is still room for improvement for me, and I've been doing it for, like I said, sewing for a while, but the buttonhole stitch I just started doing about a month and a half ago. So I have much to improve. So now we've gotten to the end, and I take this and kind of just go right here in another diagonal, and I pull this one, and this one I will put a little bit more tension on to lock that open, okay, because I don't want it to also shrink. As much as I don't want it to open up, I don't want it to shrink, and so that lock will keep that from happening. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this around and continue and do it on the other one over here. Let me see if I can get closer. I apologize, guys, if you can't see very well on this. I'm learning. And a little bit tighter on that tension again. But now we've turned it upside down. So as you can see, we have a seam right there to keep it from fraying. So I'm just gonna really quickly go around and finish this side, and then show you how to lock up the ends and be done with the buttonhole stitch. Once it starts getting a little bit shorter, you may have to maneuver a little bit easier, but you can do that. Once you get it down, it's much easier to complete. Okay, and once we're at the end, we're gonna go ahead and do that one last stitch over there. And then we're gonna go in through the underside and come around to the back part of that stitch. You can see where our knot was where we started. And we're just gonna come up next to it and kind of hook it and go around twice, pull it through, and that's gonna lock our stitch in. And go ahead and just cut and snip the little tail off of it. And that's the underside of our button hole. That's the upper side of our buttonhole. And if you want to test out how it works, just take the button from before and put it through the hole. you know it'll work. So there you go. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anecdotes, haikus, or short stories, leave them in the comments. If you have any ideas for me to help with my video editing or quality or anything like that, please send me a message. I welcome all information that I can get. Hope this helped, and if you have anything else you'd like to say, just let me know below. Thank you.